in this section. Epithelium is covering, so these are going to be histology slides of the epithelial tissue. Later we'll look at connective tissue, muscle, and then nervous tissue. This is found throughout the body. It covers internal and external surfaces. Epithelial tissue helps form most glands, blood vessels, outer layer skin, the digestive tract, respiratory passages. Okay, test question, structure and function. So here's function of epithelia. So we have protection, acts as a barrier, will permit the passage of substances such as oxygen and carbon dioxide, allows for secretion, and absorbing. As a reminder, this is something we talked about in lab, but as a reminder, the thinner the epithelial tissue, its function is going to be more for secretion, absorption, infiltration, and the thicker the epithelial tissue, it's going to be more on the protective side, abrasion resistant, and things in that family. Okay, this one we're looking at a section of the lung. Okay, this is simple squamous epithelial tissue, and simple means one cell layer thin, so we're dealing with one cell layer, and it's squamous, has that fish scale look to it, and because it's thin, this will be responsible for diffusion. Okay, so as you can imagine, in the lungs, gases diffuse very easily across this type of tissue. So we name them according to the number of layers and the shape that they present with. So simple means one cell layer thin, and it can have a squamous look to it, which is fish scale like look. It can look like a cube or cuboidal, and columnar, look like a column. Okay, so simple, one cell layer thin, shaped kind of like a fish scale, shaped like a cube, shaped like a column. The next thing is if it's more than one layer thin, which means two or more, we call it stratified. Okay, then we have this pseudo-stratified. Pseudo means false, so it gives it a false stratified appearance. And then the other type we see is transitional, which means it is in transition and it can be stretched. And you would find that in the urinary bladder. So we'll talk about that when we get there in a little bit. Okay, once you find out the number of layers, then you have to look at the shape. So, for an example, if you're looking at something that looks like a fish scale and it's only one cell layer thin, then you would say simple squamous epithelial tissue. Let's say you were looking at something that had many layers and was shaped like a cube. Then you would say stratified cuboidal epithelial tissue. Okay, simple squamous epithelium. So for these, you'll want to know the structure itself. So there it is, simple squamous epithelium. Its function and where it's found. So for all the tissue that we're going to look at, those are test questions. The structure itself, its function, and where it's found. Okay, so simple squamous epithelium, its function, FXN right there is function, diffusion, filtration, protection. It's found in the lining of blood vessels, heart, and lung. So here's a picture of it, one cell layer thin, looks like fish scale. Here's showing you an example here, alveoli of lung. Okay, this one, it's obvious it's shaped like a cube, so automatically cuboidal, and it's one cell layer thin, so simple cuboidal epithelium. Function, your classics for a thin layer, diffusion, secretion, absorption, and you would find these in kidney, bronchioles, and ovaries. Okay, simple columnar epithelial tissue. Here it is here. Looks like a column, one cell layer thin. Its function, movement of particles, found in stomach, intestines, so basically GI system. And this is one that is very important and special to me as a functional medicine practitioner, because one of the things that we focus on is gut health, and people hurt this particular tissue, the simple columnar epithelium, and the microvilli that comes with it, and the blood vessels and all that help you absorb your micronutrients. These get hurt if you're sensitive or allergic to foods, stress, side effects of medication. Translation, a busted gut. If your gut is busted, it will create a ton of health problems for you, adverse reactions. So when people come in, this is a very important evaluation that we do to analyze their gut health, and then we begin the repair mechanisms. Medically speaking, you can test for this stuff. There's genetic testing for celiac disease and other GI dysfunctions. You can do biopsies looking for sprues and other inflammatory processes. You can do imaging studies with contrast dye mediums to look for different issues within the GI system, like Crohn's disease and other disorders. I mean, there's a lot that can happen if a person constantly is damaging their simple columnar epithelial tissue. And as we've talked about before, the inflammatory response, especially chronic inflammation, absolutely not good for you. It will hurt you in the long run. And just busting this one system, the simple columnar epithelium in your GI system, will create many, many other dysfunctions. So, that being said, if you can treat the underlying cause, which is typically diet and lifestyle, so what they're doing that's hurting them, nip that in the bud, and then heal the gut, you're going to take care of many issues. Now, I get that, and I get into detail with that in ANP2, and I mean very deep detail, because in ANP2, that's when we really dive into the gastrointestinal system. Okay, and this next one, pseudostratified columnar epithelium. So pseudo means false, stratified columnar. So if you look over here, it does have kind of a false multi-layered column look to it. So that's where the name comes from. Now we're going to add to this ciliated, ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium, because there's your cilia, the hair-like projections found within this tissue. Now, if you have not seen the cell physiology video that I posted back when we did cell phys stuff, I highly recommend you go back and look at that, because it has a wonderful 3D animation of what cilia looks like, what it does, how it functions. So if you haven't checked that out, please go back and look at that. Function, it secretes mucus, helps move foreign particles, which is part of our defense system. Found in nasal cavity, trachea, the bronchi of the lungs, and also found in fallopian tubes. Okay, stratified squamous epithelium. Its function, what stratified is more than one layer. Okay, so you're seeing here many, many layers. Here's an animation of it. Many layers. Squamous, looks like fish scale. Its function, protection against abrasion. So there's your barrier, there's your protection. Thick, things that are thick like to protect. Prevents water loss. Okay. found in skin, mouth, vagina, cornea. Transition epithelium, so this is tissue that is in transition. Okay, you can see in this slide here where it's basically recessed or descended into itself, and here it's expanded. So at one point, this is your where it's not been stretched yet, and just kind of act like you're going to take your hand and press down on this. It will recess into itself. Recess into itself and then look like that.